Hey, we're back.
We are back. Back like
It's
Jack.
been
I don't know why Jack's back.
It's been a minute. Right? I mean,
Or a few more than that, yeah, for sure. Just a lot happening. You know, the hiatus went a little longer than we meant for it, but it was intentional. It was intentional.
it was.
A lot has happened.
It has. But think
Tara's
about
hair
the
got
last
prettier.
time we were together.
The
This is
the
because of
last
the
time
cow
we were
tongue.
together. Oh yeah, that's right. The cow tongue.
It turned my
That
hair
did
blonde.
indeed happen. At
It's
least you
not
didn't go
just a
white.
dream. It really happened.
It's not. Yeah, no, yeah, since then you got prettier and I got heavier. So but I
Okay.
stopped smoking, so there's that. Yeah.
Hey,
I just replaced
I would
all
rather
things with
you
that.
gain a few little pounds or ounces and your lungs heal.
20.
Uh, maybe I don't know what to say about that one.
Don't worry. I will lose it all on the ship.
Okay, you better
All of
because, we've got some exciting news coming up. And so we both are going to need to be in tip-top shape.
We do, and we are. And hopefully that is indeed going to help me out. I'm really, really hoping for that.
I mean, I have to
yeah.
say, at least we meet twice a week. So it's not like we haven't seen each other, but I love you and all that. But I've kind of missed everybody else too.
Yeah, I know. Me too. There is something about the interaction that we get and the performance and all of that, and sharing news and things that just kind of gets me moving, and excited about life. And without it, there were some really not funny days for me. So
Same
I'm glad that
here.
we're back.
Me too. And remind everybody to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that way you'll get reminders when we're on. Right?
Yes. Absolutely. Would you like to do some of the lovely the two announcements that are here? That would be awesome.
I would love to. The first one is, and if you follow us on social media, you saw yesterday, tickets went on sale yesterday for our live in-person show of 2025 at Hamilton Pool Vineyard and Farms, May 3rd. So
I'm
it's
so
also
excited.
May the Force be with you weekend. I mean, and it's the weekend before Cinco de Mayo. There is like so much that we could do.
There is so much to drink for.
Mean,
do a live stream about.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll have to pop in and do some little fun things while you're at my house, since you're going to be staying at my house for the weekend.
Yes. It's going to be a whirlwind tour. In fact, anytime that we go somewhere to do a show, it's going to be a whirlwind tour. It's going to be crazy, but worth it. Worth it every time.
I just had a thought. You're going to get to be with Jasper.
Oh.
You get to meet Jasper.
I hope everybody just got super jealous.
I
hope everybody just got super jealous. I'm jealous of myself, my future self.
You're going to get some Jasper love. So
I get to cuddle with Jasper, right?
You get to cuddle with Jasper. I'm so excited. Your kids are going to hate you. The boys are going to be so mad. Maybe you can take
For sure.
You can take home some goat poop. I can put it in little baggies for you.
There you go. So we got that first one coming up. Our goal was like 4, right?
Well, but we've still got we've got another one coming up in July.
Correct.
And then we've got 4 others that we're negotiating. I'm only telling we will tell when tickets go on sale, because that means
Yes.
the contract's finalized, everything's done. So, but we are working on potentially 5 this year,
Which is
which
awesome.
is exciting. And then the other great exciting news is on February 20th, while you're on a boat somewhere, I am going to have Brian Joseph, the author of Vegas Concierge, on. Guys, this book, I have it right here on my desk. I have read it twice because I keep forgetting to write down the questions I want to ask him because I keep getting drawn into the book. So it's about sex trafficking, hip hop, and corruption in America. And he talks to real life victims of sex trafficking and they share their stories. I thought I was somewhat educated about what sex trafficking was and how it got started. I learned I didn't know 2%. Didn't know 2%. So he is going to
Yeah.
be amazing to have on the show while
Oh,
you're
absolutely.
floating on a
Oh,
boat.
thanks, Lady in Gray, for posting that. That would
Oh,
be the
thank you.
website to his book.
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of cool stuff. I cannot say because I don't know what the internet situation is. I don't think I'm gonna have a good enough signal to stream.
Right.
So, but I will try.
I will tell you, they do have internet service and it's good, but it's pricey. I mean, I haven't been on a boat now in 10 years, so maybe it's gotten better, but I had to do some work. I wanna say I paid like $100 for like 20 minutes or something. It was outrageous.
Oh no, it's different now. Yeah, but
Okay.
so we like have a package for it because well, we got to stay in
Okay.
contact with the kids and everybody. But
Oh,
we
wait
only
a
did
minute.
it for
What?
like one device.
The kids aren't going?
No.
Are they coming to
Nope.
my house?
Nope. My mother is coming down to
I was gonna say, is your
watch
mom
them,
gonna come take care of them?
and
Okay.
yes, this is a 10-year anniversary cruise.
I know it is, but
So our 10-year was January 15th, January 10th, January 10th. It was January 10th in 2015. JT, don't confuse the dates.
it's
Um, but
and just to remind you, it's also around Valentine's Day, so no pressure,
mhm.
no pressure.
We already
And
got a
I
cruise. What else are we gonna do?
Dude, don't even go there. Also, I want to tell people if you know of any wineries or even places that are like pubs that sell wine and do things and they do these kind of shows, please send the information to Tara at tcwtmedia.com. We will add them to our
Yeah.
list to reach out to
Mhm.
because I mean, if we get all of these booked and it goes well, I mean, we will keep looking to do things. And what we're doing is we let the venue pick the case if they want to. And then if they don't want to, we're going to pick cases that are local cases. And for those of you that are channel members and you pay to see our extra content, we are working on a way that you will be able to see it live via a stream. So
Mhm.
we haven't forgotten you guys. So we are working
Yep.
on that. So what we talking
So
about and drinking tonight?
yes, we both our brains both went to the next thing, which was great. Um, so tonight we are talking about what happened to James Bulger. If you do not know this case, strap in. Um, in terms of drinking, I my wine choice tonight has been is called Angels Inc. It's a Pinot. It's from the Central Coast. I love the label. I won't show all labels, but this is a really pretty label
That's a
that's
pretty label.
embossed. Um, yeah, and so it's like it's from the Central Coast of California. It's fruit forward, but it does have a very oaky presence. So what it says here, and I'm not great at describing alcoholic drinks. However, What it says is the wine delights the palate with a crush of berry and a vanilla backed juiciness. What I like to say is it tastes like wine.
I was like, vanilla backed juiciness. I mean, the first thing that just popped in my head was Baby Got Back song is what is singing in my head. What is wrong with me?
Well, listen, we got to get the laughs in where we can, because I will say this, as a father of two, I cannot imagine having something like this case that we're discussing tonight happen. The guilt that I would feel, the knowledge of that last time with my kid's hand slipping away from me, I I would just be wondering what I was doing. What was I saying? Was I happy with them? Were they doing something to frustrate me? Did it even matter at that point? I don't know. But James Bulger, who I can only describe as just this cherubic 2-year-old, he became a symbol of innocence undone. And it's not simply a tragedy, it's a reminder that the thread between childhood and adulthood, life and death, it's incredibly fragile and thin. We we're so used to having such evil being perpetrated by adults, and to a degree, I think we can make sense out of it because of the time on Earth they have had and the amount of life they've gone through. But the two boys that caused this issue, this problem that James went with, or they took, they were 10 years old. And they were barely old enough to comprehend the weight of their own shadows, let alone their actions. And these boys were the architects of a nightmare. This this is darkness that has taken root very, very quickly. And it was something that changed policies and laws. But despite all that changed, a crime like this really makes me wonder, and I think others wonder, did we do enough? And so I'm dreading / I'm excited about getting into it. What about you? What about your wine choice? And Lady in Gray, thank you.
Thank you, Lady in Gray. So, first of all, I'm drinking out of my cute wine glass that I happen to find at Dollar Tree, guys. So it's what, $1.25? It says be wine or be mine. They marked out mine and it says wine. So that's just me because I love Valentine's Day. But I am drinking In Vivo Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc. It's a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc that was made and specially blended by the one and only SJP, also known as Sarah Jessica
What?
Parker.
It's like
Yes.
pink human embodied.
The wine, it's a tropical style, but guys, and this sounds so naughty when I say it, but this is from them. It says it is smooth with a long finish.
I mean, you don't want it to end too soon.
I know, but it's got a very vibrant aroma of lime and rock melon. I mean, it smells fruity. The only challenge with this wine, it's too easy drinking. It's too easy drinking. You have to be careful. You'll drink the whole wine, the whole bottle. But this case, I'm excited, but I have so many feels. I'm going to just warn people. I got lots of tangents, lots of things to say, and I'm going to apologize up front, but I got them to say because this case hits so close to home. I mean, I'm a boy mom. I have, 2 boys, and this caused me anxiety because the thought of 2 10-year-olds committing a brutal murder like this makes me just say, what in the hell was going through their minds? What was happening in their lives to take 2 innocent creatures to that point that they comprehend do this? I mean, as a person who loves the true crime world and has forever, I can't say that I ever have thought of brutally murdering someone, except for in revenge. And when I was 10 years old, all I cared about was Barbie and Sean Cassidy. I mean, I didn't comprehend, that. And I can't help but also wonder, was there signs that people missed of these kids? Because it is a tragedy and horrific what they did to James. Horrific. But I also, I try to be kind and try to have empathy, but I can't help but imagine the pain that his family has suffered and they continue to suffer, but also for those two boys that were 10 years old. I don't know how to do that because as a parent, you don't just stop loving your kids, you know? And hold
Right.
on, Captain. Oh, Angie and I are going to fight. Sean Cassidy's mine. I have touched him. He has touched my hand, and his face used to be on my
Was there
underwear.
consent?
So
Hold on.
there was consent. I was a child, and it was at the Astrodome in
I was
Houston,
a
Texas.
child. You're not helping yourself.
He drove around in the car after the performance, and you stick your hand out, and he touched my hand.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
and then I rubbed it all over
Sorry.
my face, and I had on my underwear with his little face on them. So, um, you mentioned that this case made a lot of laws change, and it did, but I am still going to say, after diving into this case, we do not have the answers still. We do not have the answers of how you handle this, how you approach it. And I think someone needs to spend some enormous amount of time researching these things. So, like you said, buckle up. I'm going to just say try not to drink too much too fast because it's, in my opinion, it's the most horrific case we've ever done.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So listen, kind of bouncing off of that. At True Crime and Wine Time here, we discuss real life crimes, many of which include disturbing details that may not be suitable for all listeners. Topics could include violence, abuse, murder, sexual assault, and other sensitive content. And we approach each case with respect for the victims while also engaging in candid discussions. Um, we do encourage listener discretion. So if any topic becomes too overwhelming, please prioritize your well-being. You can always pause, step away, skip ahead. If you or someone you know is struggling, please seek help. We will include relevant resources in our episode description when applicable. So get ready.
I'm going to tell you guys, pour a glass, pour a couple of glasses, grab a bottle. I'm not encouraging alcoholism here. I'm just saying prepare yourself. Let's dive into the dark side of true crime together because here on True Crime and Wine Time, we do tackle the hard stuff, and this one's hard. So let's go.
All right. So James Patrick Bulger was born on March 16th, 1990, to parents Denise and Ralph Bulger and a working class family. And I think producer,
What a cutie pie. Look at those cheeks. Guys, I, when reading, hearing people say that they described him as cheeky because, it's British. I mean, look at that middle picture. That is cheeky. He's just
for sure.
adorable. It's just adorbs.
I love those cheeks. I'm always sad when they go away. So they lived in Kirkby, Merseyside, England. James was their miracle child. He was their second. The couple had a stillborn daughter, and a year later, James was born. Now, because of the loss just before James, they were extremely doting as parents. They were very protective of him. So you can only imagine the intensity of this loss, having just lost a daughter 3 to 4 years before.
Mhm.
Now, James was known as cheerful and curious. He was always eager to explore the world. His family, friends, and neighbors described him as lively and affectionate, with an infectious smile that brightened any room he entered. Denise ensured that James was happy and secure. And Ralph was a hardworking dad, and he shared a close bond with James, which I find amazing. And they often spent quality time together during the weekends. So this is a family that is very close, and James was very well loved.
Yeah, I mean, just look at those photos. Just look
I
at
know.
those photos. And I'm gonna just say that mustache on dad, I like it. Okay. So we're gonna move on. Okay. So
I like it. Fight me.
I like it. So now we're gonna talk about the other two kids for a second. So Robert Thompson and John Venables, for whatever reason, they woke up on February 12th, 1983, and decided to skip school. Now, let me tell you, neither one of these kids liked school. They each had their own challenges, whether it was being picked on by others, having learning difficulties, ADHD, can't sit still in their seat, that kind of stuff. And both of these kids were held back and were in a grade below where they should have been. So, they were picked on for that. And it is said that when they met, they became friends. It was almost like magnets.
Right. It's it's really interesting to me that when any age person, right, is having a hard time at home, they seek another refuge. Now, why they hated school, they found someone else who was in the same boat, or really kind of the same cannon on the same boat. And that comfort allowed them to become friends that share, it's almost a shared misery, right?
Mhm.
Between their dislike of school and all the other things that were going on in their life. So it's so interesting.
Well, and you gravitate naturally towards people like you. They both, we're going to find out, had some rough home life. So it makes sense. So, like I said, they woke up to skip school. They both, since becoming friends, had become truant kids. They skipped school often. Now, I read one of the moms that she got in trouble. The school said, "You've got to make him go to school." She took they call them runners, but took his tennis shoes and hid them because she thought if he couldn't find his shoes until it was time to go to school and she took him to school, he couldn't run off, right? Yeah, no, he left before time to get up to go to school and still skipped school, and he just went without shoes. So, um, Lady in Gray just asked how old were they again? They were 10 years old. So Robert and John were 10. Now, and I don't know why, and I have spent so many hours trying to think about this that it's caused me a little bit of anxiety, but these boys, for some ungodly reason, thought it would be fun to abduct a kid and kill them. And guys, all I hear in my head, even saying that out loud, is what in the actual hell? How in the hell does a 10-year-old, much less two 10-year-olds, wake up and say, "Hey, let's skip school and go kill someone today"? I mean, my mind literally cannot understand this shit. I can't. And I've hurt myself
That's
trying.
probably for the best.
Eh, Yeah.
It's good that you
And
can.
we're going to find out James was their second attempt of the day. So when I say they woke up and had this plan in mind, they knew they wanted to abduct a kid and kill them. So the boys, they decided, not to go to school, and they head to the Strand, which is a shopping center. And they decide to steal from several different stores and get into mischief, basically. And the interesting thing about that, they would steal stuff and then throw it away. It was the thrill of stealing and hoping they would get caught. They didn't actually steal anything they wanted. So they didn't go like steal a Pokemon card or a troll, because one of them was into troll dolls. They stole like a pen. They stole these random things and then would just throw it away. So that's why I want to say they wanted to get into mischief, you know? And they talked to these other two kids and they tried to get them to go with them. Luckily, those kids' moms said, "Hey, you two, get over here," and they came back. Unfortunately, Denise, James's mom, so where the family lived, all of the family, Denise, his mom is one of 13 kids. All of the kids lived within a couple of miles of the mom and dad's house. So woke up, Denise took James over there. Her sister-in-law was there and her niece, and she took her niece and James to go out shopping to the mall. Okay. And she kept her eye on him. Now she decided not to take him in his pram. A pram is a stroller, guys, but I like the word pram. It makes me feel fancy. Plus, prams, like infant prams, are bougie, and I want to sleep in one. But that's for another day. But she decided she was going to let him walk, and she would just hold on to his hand and keep track of him. Guys, she was paying for her purchase at the butcher shop. She let go of James's hand, and I want you to think about this. Let go of his hand, grabbed her wallet, handed the money, put the change, put it back, went to grab his hand, and James was gone. That fast. Okay? And if you think about it, and the media was awful in the beginning. Some people got better, but they wanted to give the mom some shade for not taking care of her kid. But I want to say to anyone who wants to throw that shade on that mother, I'm going to say shut the F up, because as a mom and a grandmother, I can tell you, you have to let go of the child's hand for a minute to pay for things, open a door. You cannot, unless you put a leash on them, control them, all of that. Now, she panicked immediately, ran out to look for James, looked around the butcher area, and she didn't see him. So she went to security, okay? And she told them, I can't find my child. But they did see James on the store's video walking away from his mother as she paid and going out the door of the butcher shop. It was
I,
less. Go ahead.
no, I was saying I can't imagine like having to watch that footage over
Oh,
and over and over again, because it wasn't just you know in that's
oh.
probably small office or in the court. It was like all over the television, and it's just
Mhm.
like a constant reminder of that one moment that you just removed your hand, constantly
Yep.
making you question everything over again. So
Yeah. And what I found interesting, when she let go of his hand, she looked around the butcher shop first before she went out the door. 3 minutes from the time James went out the door, his mom went out the door looking for him. That's after she spent 2.5 minutes looking around the butcher shop. It happened that fast. I mean, now we will find out James was seen on another camera 3 minutes later after that, walking with two other boys while holding one of the boys' hands. Okay, now something that's interesting about that is we will find out later when you tell us about everything that happened that day. But I have to say, I wouldn't think it's suspicious to see two 10-year-olds walking with a 2-year-old. I would think they were brothers or friends.
oh yeah, especially at that time.
Yeah. So now the three walked roughly, it was like 2.5 miles, 3 miles through Liverpool. And James, who you'll remember was just 2 years old, at times was crying for his mom. And, they said on the video sometimes he was seen laughing and then witnesses saw him and stuff. But the thing I stop and think about, a 2-year-old walking that many miles, those are little bitty legs. Those are wee legs. Those are wee little legs,
My
you know?
8-year complains after a block.
Now, the three were seen by others after James was abducted. And this is the part that starts making me on a tangent. The older boys were even seen kicking and hitting James, yet none of the people who saw them stepped in and did anything, which pisses me off because maybe I'm a meddling person, maybe I'm Karen, but if I saw two boys picking on a toddler, I wouldn't care if they were brothers or what. I would have stepped in and called the cops. I don't know what that says about me, but I would have done something. I know that for a fact because seriously, 10 and 2, and the 10-year-old should have been in school. And my other thought is, why wasn't that a clue that you saw two 10-year-olds that weren't in freaking school? And then you see them beating a 2-year-old, which there is no reason for that ever to be okay. So it's always wrong. And I will tell you guys, it will always put me in mama bear mode and make me step in and get involved in shit.
Yeah, it's like it's bad enough when I walk into the daycare and see two boys kind of facing another one. It just happened the other day. Big little Bruce crime. I've seen him step up to kind of protect his brother more than once, which is heartfelt and it warms the cockles of my heart. Shouldn't have to happen, but I get that dad stance, and I go and I just stare right through the kid causing problems. I never thought I'd have one of those stares, but boy, oh boy, I will stare knives through in order to get them to. And they look and they know exactly what they know what they're doing. They know they shouldn't be doing it. It's simple, but yeah, it's. I, I can't say that I wouldn't be subject to the bystander effect, which we don't go into too much here, maybe in another episode. But I would like to think that I would step in.
Because it's a 2-year-old, I would step in. I mean, I saw two 10-year-olds hitting each other. I might just stand there and watch. But a 2-year-old, two 10-year-olds kicking and beating a 2-year-old, because then I'm going to be looking around going, where in the hell are the mothers and the fathers and where are the parents?
Right.
So now, after they took James and did their stuff, I'm not going to get into all of that because you're going to go with this down that path. But I want to tell you guys, after they did this, those two boys head to a local video store where they go often when they're skipping school. Another red flag, because they know the owner of this video store and they run errands for her often. Why are you not calling the parents or somebody to tell them they should be in school? I mean, why? But so that night, they also run an errand. And what's interesting, John's mother had been out looking for him because she had heard he had skipped school. She finds him at the video store. But what is real interesting is that she instantly goes into like mama punishing mode, and she starts waylaying into John and into Robert. I mean, she literally starts laying into someone else's child. And I don't know about you. Would you lay into someone else's child physically?
Oh no. Oh no, no, no. No, ma'am.
Sorry, guys. I
Not
just got
anymore.
kicked out for some reason.
You got kicked out of where?
The Google Drive. I'm back.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know what happened. It's okay. It happens. But so I just, a lot of that just makes me crazy. And all of that. But neither one of the boys let on that they knew anything. Now, the interesting thing about the investigation, after Denise went to the security office, security at the shopping center, they looked for, James, because I mean, I have to admit, I've lost my kid while out shopping. Now, granted, my kid ran off and was hiding in the clothes rack because he thought it would be funny.
Kids.
And then when I went off looking, he told somebody, my mom is lost. Not that he was lost, but that his mom was lost.
that checks out.
And the looks I got from the security person, I was like, I was there, disappeared. I didn't know he just went in. I didn't know you could go in the middle of a clothes rack. So
It's like the best place
basically, security looked, they decided to call the police. So the police were called within 30 minutes. Now, a lot of people in the media were bashing the police and bashing the security officer and the mom for not calling them for 30 minutes. Who would think that a 2-year-old would disappear from a shopping center that fast? You look around the shopping center first, because if we call the cops every time a kid hides in the clothing rack at a store, the police would never get anything done. So
correct. My brain would be all over the place anyways, and so just logically, that wouldn't cross my mind to just straight up call the police right away. Somebody would have to either make the call for me or suggest it to me, because I can tell you my brain is not thinking that. My brain is find the child as fast as possible.
Yeah, now this kind of almost made me go down another rabbit hole, but it turned out well, because while the police were searching for James around the shopping center, another 4-year-old went missing from the same shopping center while James was missing. Now, the good news is the 4-year-old was found, but he told police a man in a white coat had tried to talk him into his car. So he was outside of the shopping center, but that is 2 kids in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Plus the kids that we know John and Robert tried to abduct before James. So that's like 3 children's abductions in a matter of hours in one location. That's
a problem.
Beyond comprehension for me. Because, guys, this is back when we would leave our house in the morning and go play until sunset. We knew not to come home until then. Now, the police did something that I thought was amazing. They immediately alerted the media, all taxi companies, and the bus lines that a 2-year-old is missing. I never thought about alerting taxi companies. Had you? I mean,
Good idea.
I host Midday Missing, and I tell families what they should do. I need to go add to it. And Amy, if you're on, I think I saw you on. We need to add that to a list of things to do if your kids go missing or if somebody goes missing. Alert Uber, Lyft, taxi companies. I never thought of it. So even this old dog can learn new tricks. Okay. That's all I'm saying. But thankfully, I think because he was a 2-year-old, police began searching immediately on foot and by car in the area immediately surrounding the center, because there is a canal there. There is water. And the thing that I found so interesting about that is they didn't just call 1 or 2 police officers to come in. They called in the cavalry. Oh, Cap'n just put up a thing. I did call Uber when I had a missing family member. They gave me a link to give the cops to track their ride. That is great information. I definitely am going to be adding that on Midday Missing, because that's good info. Now, the police were also looking for the man in the coat that the other the 4-year-old talked about, but they were also looking for a man that was said to be seen at the center who had a ponytail, but he appeared strange. Okay, guys,
Could have been me.
I'm exactly. I mean, let's just stop and think about that. There's people that just look strange. They didn't nowhere could I find, oh, he was taking pictures of kids. He was staring at kids. He was talking to kids. No, he just looked weird, had a ponytail. So that's okay. So that gave the police 2 suspects, the man in the white car and the guy with the ponytail. Now, they started looking around. They went and talked to all the shops. Hey, do you seen yada, yada, yada? The man with the ponytail went to the police station, walked in and says, I hear you're looking for me. I'm the strange dude with the ponytail. He was cleared.
Like they said in Wicked, it's me. So really the moral of the story is if you're suspected for something, just turn yourself in and you'll be cleared and that'll be the result. Most times.
Like, most of the times, yes. Now, in that picture, we saw that there's a canal. The police asked for an underwater search, and that underwater search team searched the canal the very next morning after James went missing. I mean, guys, they jumped into action. Okay. Now, around midnight on the day that James went missing, police knew they couldn't do much searching at night. Captain says, if you're suspected, don't have a ponytail.
Simple facts.
Well, I'm going to just say here in Austin, Texas, there's a lot of men with ponytail and there's a lot of man buns.
I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of it now, I guess.
I like it. So, but they
okay.
knew they couldn't do a lot at night. So they decided to go get the video security from 16 different cameras around the shopping center. And they decided to sit back with their donuts and coffee and start watching all of them.
It was scones and tea. Scones and tea.
In my world, it's coffee and donuts, but it probably was a spot of tea and a scone. You're correct.
I'm going to log that in my memory bank for the rest of my life. You doing that one.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Now, this is where, and I mentioned it earlier, that they find out that James is with 2 boys. So the video shocked the police. And I have to tell you guys, this would have shocked the crap out of me too. That James hadn't wandered off, but had walked off with what they thought was 2 teenage boys. And that was concerning to them.
Yeah.
And they released this grainy video footage to the public, hoping someone would recognize these boys. But yeah, I think we have a quick, little picture of it there. But I mean, can't see a whole lot. And guys, that is some grainy footage. But I also want to say in 2025, I've still seen some grainy shit. Okay. Which I'll try not to spare too much or waste too much time. But can we just get better security cameras? Please. I want to be able to look at video footage and say, hey, that's JT. Or, hey, that's Terry. I don't want to say, oh, that could be one of 5 people.
If my Ring camera has a better view or a better camera quality than the quality of a security camera in like a bank, we've got problems right here in River City.
So now police brought in a man. He worked at one of the shops there, and he said he saw 2 teenage looking boys and a toddler. And guys, he worked at one of the places. The cops called him at 2 a.m. He got up out of bed and went down to the police station to look at those videos. I mean, I just want to tell this guy, amazing, and I will buy you a spot of tea and a skull. Okay. But he couldn't identify the boys, but he was able to say, that is the boys I saw. And the police continue investigating.
Yeah. So I have the horrible job of talking about the crime scene and the autopsy. Um, so Valentine's Day of '93, I mean, it wasn't a day of love for everyone. In Liverpool, it was the day James Bulger, age 2, was found deceased near a railway in Walton, Liverpool. To make this discovering even more awful, James's badly beaten body was discovered by children who were playing. They were playing and they found the deceased body of a 2-year-old. I can't.
I'm going to just tell you the amount of trauma this would give me as an adult. I mean, if I saw that as an adult, but could you imagine being a child and finding the body of a toddler?
I can't. And they couldn't. And just as a quick aside, um, the kids who found them were James and Terrence Riley, and they were 14 and 13 when they found James Bulger. And the two, shocked, totally shaken, badly shaken, which, I mean, I think, and as anybody would be. And they let their parents know about their discovery. Now, sadly, and whether it was caused by this or there were other things that happened, but both ended up becoming addicts, with one later dying in um later dying in life. And so like, for instance, James Riley had been convicted more than 40 times for a range of offenses, and he'd been known as a drug addict, and something his family said was a result of him discovering James's body. And Terrence used the excuse of finding James when he appeared at the Liverpool Crown Court after he crashed into a car while leading police on a chase after taking drugs. And in 2009, he was jailed for 12 years for smuggling drugs from South America via Amsterdam. Uh, and during that time, Judge Murray accepted that Riley had suffered post-traumatic stress after finding the body, but jailed him for 12 months for his driving record anyways. And this whole time, right? This whole time, James's mom, Denise, said, quote, "I was sickened to learn that this man is dragging James's name up as an excuse for his own crimes." I can
Yeah,
see
I mean,
why it would be kind of like that linchpin, for things to go south. But yeah, I mean, it's all in how you do it, I think.
I mean, I agree it's not an excuse. It's not. But I can't help but ask and wonder, did those boys get any therapy to deal with what they saw? Because if they didn't and no one gave them those services, then as a society, how in the hell could we have expected them to grow up normal with no issues? Because
Yeah,
finding
in
a dead child
1993,
that
I don't see
was,
it happening in 93.
I'll let you get into the crime scene, but it was a gruesome scene. I If they didn't get help, they didn't have a chance.
Yeah. And you're right. The location was really unremarkable at first glance. It kind of looked like a scene out of the movie Stand By Me with the train tracks. Again, it was along the railway tracks near Walton, Liverpool, and was an isolated stretch of industrial infrastructure overshadowed by gray skies, just this air of neglect. There were jagged steel tracks that cut through the landscape. They were flanked by overgrown grass and weeds. It was like an awkward, unkempt limbo. And when police arrived, and remember, As police arrived, this was also how the two kids found James. But James's body had been laid across the tracks and had unfortunately been run over by a train. The police felt as if James was laid across by the two 10-year-old boys in the hopes that they would make James's death look like an accident. And this is, I mean, it's chilling. And it shows that they knew what was done and they knew that it was absolutely wrong.
Mhm.
Um, they also found at the scene a bunch of evidence, including 27 bricks, stones, and a 22-pound iron rod that was used. They were all used as weapons. Blue paint was found on James' clothes, which would later be tied to the 10-year-olds. And small footprints were found at the scene and later were matched to the shoes belonging to the two 10-year-old killers. In addition, it's important to know that trains immediately were halted without delay because there was now more than just one crime scene. Uh, Bricks appeared to have been placed on James's head, and through the force, and then the force of the train scattered those. The bricks and stones were stained with blood, and they also found a set of three AA batteries near the scene. We'll talk about this in a little bit. This evidence and James's body told the detectives that this had been an absolutely brutal murder, and it heightened their desire to find the killers, which at that point, not sure. Now, if you weren't triggered already, here's a solid trigger warning. I'm not going to get graphic by any stretch, but I am going to explain what the injuries were to a child. And if that's not for you, totally cool. I get it. It wasn't for me either. Just give me like 5 minutes and then come back and we'll be done with it. Um, the the autopsy of James Bulger was conducted by Home Office pathologist Dr. Alan Williams, and it revealed the extent of the brutal assault he endured before his death on February 12th. Here are a few of the key findings. James sustained 42 injuries in total, with 22 bruises, splits, and grazers on his face and head, and 20 wounds on his body. There were multiple fractures to James's skull, with the right side shattered. The extensive damage suggested that James had been struck by at least 30 blows. There was significant brain damage, as you can probably imagine, which included a hemorrhage at the center of the brain. Dr. Dr. Williams, as if it wasn't bad enough, Dr. Williams noted that James endured a short period of survival after the attack, possibly only minutes, before succumbing to his injuries. He was also able to confirm that James was deceased before the train impact. Overall, this autopsy and its findings, those were crucial during the trial. Just
Every one of those facts is horrific, but I have to be honest. We're talking about a 2-year-old. Just one, just one of those head traumas is triggering to me. But to hear that this was all done to a 2-year-old, um, it fills me with, and then to think that 10-year-olds did that.
yeah, each each fact is really hard, and obviously getting through it's very hard. However, I think the hardest part about everything is that he lived through that whole thing,
Mhm.
according to autopsy and findings, and you almost wish for him not to be cognizant of what's happening
I just
right away.
To get me through it, I told myself that he was passed out. He was still alive, but he wasn't conscious. That's the only way I can.
I'm hoping. Yeah.
I'm going to just live with that story that I'm telling myself.
I honestly, after you consider a 22-pound iron bar,
Yeah.
I think you're probably right. I mean, so leading up to the arrest, Robert Thompson visited the crime scene. Believe it or not, Robert Thompson visited the crime scene. He placed a solitary rose near the railway tracks, alongside other things that had been laid out in a makeshift memorial. While Robert visited the site, John was captivated by the unfolding story of James's disappearance, which apparently is ageless thing, because that's exactly what happens with older criminals and murderers, right? They're interested in what unfolds. John
Mm-hmm.
asked his mom if the culprits had been caught, adding, quote, "If I seen them lads, I'd kick their heads in. To which I say, sure hope you're pretty flexible, John, because obviously you're talking about yourself. Good luck. His mother told James that his mother told him that James had been found dead by the railway, and John expressed concern at that point for, quote, his poor mum. It's a 10-year-old. How this is like, it's brutal.
When I was doing my research and I read about Robert and John and how they were acting in the day after, I had to take deep breaths because I was about ready to throw my laptop out the window, because they are kids. And I try really hard to be that person that's kind and have empathy. But I personally believe that by them acting concerned and the comments that they made, they knew beyond any doubt what they did was wrong, and they are evil. They were pure evil.
Yeah. And the hunt for James's killer spiraled into hysteria. Accusations flew wildly. Even parents were called in to name their own children as suspects. And in one case, police arrested a 12-year-old boy, leading to a mob storming his family's home. And the boy was later cleared, but not before his family had to be relocated for their safety. There were over 200 potential leads that came into police after the video was released. Now, a woman called the police. They reported that Susan Venable's son, John, had skipped school that Friday and matched the boy in the CCTV footage. She also mentioned that Robert Thompson was John's companion that day. Well, that was just too perfect of a coincidence to be a coincidence. So they went ahead and pursued it. And on February 18th, police arrived at Ann Thompson's door with a warrant. Robert cried as he realized he was the suspect. Oh, God. A pair of blood-stained shoes were seized as evidence. I can't look at those photos. They are so young. Honestly, it doesn't hit me until I see those photos, and then I see them, and then my brain just implodes. At the Venables' home, Susan greeted officers with a cutting remark. Quote, "I knew you'd be here. I told him you'd want to see him for sagging school on Friday." And John held on to his mother, crying, saying, "I don't want to go to prison, Mom. I didn't kill the baby. It's that Robert Thompson. He always gets me into trouble." Now, John and Robert, smart move on the police's part, but John and Robert were taken to separate police stations.
Mm-hmm.
The boys, seemingly innocent, were treated as witnesses at first. It was just hard to believe that their participation in this was even remotely thinkable. During fingerprinting, John asked, fascinated, quote, "Do you leave these on whatever you touch? If you drag someone, do you leave your nails in his skin?" It's mind-blowing that these are the comments that are being made. These are the comments that adults would make, and police would be like, shh. You know what I mean? So I think we actually have a sample of Robert and John's police interview up next.
I told him to take him back.
You did as well?
Told him to take him back.
You told him to take
I
it back?
don't know.
No, you're not getting all the blame. You're just asking your son.
Yeah, we'll make the plane. Then it was Robert's idea to kill him. And we went outside to the canal.
What for?
Don't know, we said let's throw him in the water. James threw a brick in his face. Don't know.
So you were in Bootle Strand?
Was you in Bootle Strand?
We never got a kid, Mum. We never got a kid.
Would you, I must ask you not to get angry with it. A short while ago, as is detailed on your custody record out there, you had a conversation with your mum. Is that right? Yeah. And what was it you told us?
That I killed James.
I really, in full transparency, should have listened to that ahead of time. So, in his interrogation, Robert danced around the truth. And he did so dang well at first. He denied involvement. He claimed he and John had gone to the library after the Strand visit. Robert was further pressured because, well, it's an interrogation of a 10-year-old, and they pulled bloody shoes from his house. And so, under pressure, he suggested that John might have done something bad. Ultimately, hours into questioning, Robert wept as he conceded, as you heard, that John had led James by the hand. Robert said, quote, "Why do I have to stay here? John's the one that took the baby."
I listened to that and to some of the other ones because I'm glutton for punishment. And at first, I was very floored by their ability to blame each other because they're 10 years old, right? But then I started thinking of a typical elementary school kid and how many teachers have to deal with students blaming each other, right? I didn't take this, somebody else did. And then I thought of the Barney song. Who took the cookie from the cookie jar? I mean, kids blame each other. But I also was horrified that Robert called James a baby, and he kept a straight face when he said it. He cried in other parts, but there was no tears when he said, James, when he said that John took the baby, not James, that John took the baby. They knew what they were doing.
Oh yeah, for sure. And John was hysterical from the outset. He broke down. His parents reassured him that they would love him no matter what. With that, he admitted, "I did kill him. What about his mom? Will you tell her that I'm sorry?" Those were their school clothes that they put on. Yeah.
I mean, as a mom, this broke my heart, and try not to cry. I can't imagine the pain as a mom sitting there and your son telling you, "Mom, I killed him." Because I can say, I will always love my boys. I may not like what they do, but I will always love them. So I don't know how, as a mom, how do you ever lived with the fact that your child, your 10-year-old, did this to a 2-year-old? Because I don't know if I could. I would be asking myself, what in the hell did I do wrong?
Yeah. And he admitted throwing bricks at James and then described Robert's escalating violence. He claimed to have asked Robert, "Don't you think we've done enough or not?" Which is interesting rhetorically, because he kind of gave Robert permission to continue on, which continues to confuddle me in terms of who was the head and tail of the pair.
Mhm.
John grew agitated when he was talking about James's murder. He clenched his fists as he told of pulling off James's shoes. And in an interesting observation, both boys in different police departments being interrogated separately, they both became visibly distressed when they were questioned about the batteries found at the scene. John, in particular, sobbed and struck his father when asked if anything had been done to James's genitals. I don't know. By Saturday evening, both boys were charged with the murder of James Bulger, as well as his abduction, as well as the abduction of another child that they attempted before James. Ugh.
Now, like I said, I glutton for punishment. I listened to another podcast, a British podcast, that it was a very factual, and they gave every gory detail. Um, it will come up later, and I will talk about it more later. The police should have pushed those kids about the batteries. They should have, and we'll get into that. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Robert Thompson's background. Like I said, I'm not excusing what these kids did or making excuses, but Robert was born on August 23rd, 1992, to his mother, Anne, and his father, Bobby Sr. Robert's parents had gotten married at the age of 18. Both came from abusive families, okay? And Robert's family was described as terribly dysfunctional. And I'm going to just go out on a limb here and say this was no Cleaver family at all.
Yeah. Yes, unless we're talking about Beaver getting locked in the basement while Warren and June set the living room on fire over a Monopoly game. Correct. Not the Cleaver family.
But Robert was child number 5 of 7 children. Robert's dad often beat his mom and once pushed her down the stairs while she was pregnant and caused her to lose the child. So when I say it was dysfunctional, I mean it was an abusive home. Robert was described as a quiet boy, but who was troubled. He was described as calculating and always quick to shift blame and was a cunning liar. That was said before the murder. That description of him in school files. Which, once again, why didn't somebody get the kids some help and find out what was going on at home? Robert was of average intelligence, but did not do well in school. Robert's dad walked out on the family when Robert was 6, and he didn't have anything to do with the kids again. And then shortly after, the family's home burned down and they lost everything. He was 6 years old. Dad walks out and then the entire house burns down. That right there is trauma, people. You may not want to say that's trauma, but that's trauma. You know, but the other thing, Robert was bullied by his older siblings and in turn began bullying his younger brother, Ryan. It was kind of, you know how normally brothers take up for each other and you fight and you do things. No, they literally bullied and beat the younger siblings. It was a brotherly thing to do in that household. But interesting enough, Robert would bully his younger brother Ryan during the day, but at night, they also sought comfort and protection for each other, and they were even known to suck each other's thumbs while they slept. That tells you there was a lot these kids did not know how to deal with. So there is speculation, and it still persists to this day, that Robert was potentially sexually abused, but no one has ever, documented it. Robert's mother, once her husband left, she became an alcoholic, and she came from a background of neglect and abuse and brought it into her children's life. She did not do anything to try to break that cycle, because you truly have to get a lot of help and work through a lot of stuff. And they said that there was very little tenderness shown by her to her children after her husband left, and that she basically lived for alcohol. And it's also been said that Robert was very jealous of his younger brother, Ryan, because he was no longer the baby. He no longer, I mean, that happens all the time. Now, this is horrible, but it happens. The school teachers lumped all of the Thompson kids into being bad based on the earlier kids. Oh, you're so-and-so's brother, you're going to be horrible too. I had an older brother. Teachers, I walked in and they would go, oh, crap. And then 6 weeks, they'd be like, oh, y'all are nothing alike. Teachers, stop doing that. Stop doing it. Okay? That's all I'm going to tell you. Stop doing it. Now, I mentioned it earlier. Robert steals things more than just on that day. He stole things, but he threw them away.
Wait. Sorry. Obviously, laughter was needed. So he's basically he's a young criminal with commitment issues. I think, as the kids would say, hashtag can relate. Can relate. I'm there.
We needed that laugh. Now,
Yes.
Robert was also said to be very self-destructive, and he didn't feel safe or loved in his family or at home. And he was described as shrewd and streetwise by a former teacher. Now, the family had been involved with CPS for multiple issues throughout the family's time. Kids had been removed and then allowed to come back. Now, Robert had missed over 49 days of school out of 140 days in the school year before he was arrested.
Though, I think at that point, truancy was probably the least of his problems. Just gonna toss that out there.
I know, but I can't help but think if somebody, CPS would have stepped in, given these children some help, because Robert could also be very helpful. And he helped to take care of his younger brother, Ben, who was his half brother. I mean, he wasn't all bad. And think of all of that abuse and trauma at 10 years old. I mean, hell, I'm going to be 55. I sometimes don't know how to deal with situations and act out in the wrong way. As a 10-year-old, he just wanted power over something because he had no control over what was happening to him. Not that it's an excuse. Sorry.
Reset. Grußverba.
You can tell us about John.
Yes. So John Venables was born August 13th, 1982 in Liverpool, England. Adorable.
That's Jeff's birthday.
He was the middle child. Huh?
That's Jeff's birthday. That's Jeff's birthday.
Oh, well.
Not 82, though.
August
okay,
13th.
So it's good. You're just August 13th.
Yeah, we're good. He was the middle child of 3 siblings. Both of his siblings were born with developmental issues. His older brother had tantrums. His younger sister's special needs basically left John feeling overshadowed. And on top of that, his early life was marred by turmoil, instability, emotional neglect. And his parents, Susan and Neil, they had a rocky marriage, which ended in divorce when John was 3. This separation deeply affected John, as it would anyone else. John was left in his mother's care at that point, and his mother struggled with mental health issues herself and often found it difficult to manage John's behavior. Now, because of all of this, the household was marred by erratic discipline, frequent episodes of chaos as her temper would flare into physical and verbal abuse, while his dad's fleeting presence offered absolutely no stability whatsoever. And as he grew older, if you can consider a 10-year-old older, he became increasingly disruptive. So,
I mean, I read some things. He probably had ADD too. He couldn't sit still, But I just have to point out, There are many children who are raised in dysfunctional families, and they do not kill innocent children. Okay. I do, however, believe that it contributes to their actions. And I really want to know what age John and Robert started acting out and why no one tried to help them. Because, I mean, now we're a little bit more educated and we know that prevention is the key. But
Right.
I mean, I also can't help but think if both of the parents and both families were raised in abuse, maybe they just thought that's how life was.
Right. Well, and it wasn't just at home. See, John was teased relentlessly for his squint and for his siblings because children are, well, they're cruel and assholes. And he became an easy target, which provoked him into fits of anger by neighborhood children. Um, Eventually, he was transferred to another school, and that's where he met Robert Thompson. And together they became emboldened bullies, targeting weaker children. It's not going to be us. We're going to give it back. And the school tried, as schools do, to separate the boys in school, but they couldn't do anything about it while they weren't there, right? I mean, they're not at school every single hour of every single day. Now, by the time he was 10, John had a reputation for truancy and petty mischief. Sounds familiar. He was usually wandering the streets instead of attending classes. He preferred to engage in shoplifting and other minor offenses. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know about you, but I preferred to dabble in Pokemon or Digimon when I was 10. Not necessarily the shoplifting.
When I was 10, I dabbled with Sean Cassidy and Barbies. Didn't start dabbling in Pokemon until I was 52.
Hey, better late than never. So listen, we've talked about a lot, but it's definitely important to kind of talk about the events of that day in a concentrated fashion to understand just how quickly a brilliant light, the brilliant light of James Bulger could fade, or in this case, be completely snuffed out entirely.
I'm going to just tell everybody again. I suggest if you have a drink it or take a deep breath, eat some popcorn because, this really shook me to see how fast this happened.
All right, so I will tell you all this before I hop into this timeline. I was able to take a map that you're going to see in a moment and figure out certain locations, and I was able to get the street view and things like that. So you'll see some of what it looked like to a degree. Now this street view is obviously current. I don't know if much has changed though, and I think you might agree with me once you see the photos. So Friday, February 12th, 1993, at 11 a.m., Robert Thompson and John Venables skip school in Walton, Liverpool. The boys spend the morning wandering around the New Strand shopping center in Bootle. At 1:30 p.m., CCTV footage captures Robert and John inside the Strand shopping center. The boys are seen stealing various items, including sweets, batteries, and a can of blue modeling paint. At 3:38 p.m., James Bulger, 2 years old, is at the shopping center with his mother, Denise Bulger. While Denise is distracted inside a butcher shop, James wanders out of the store and is lured away by Robert and John. At 3:40 p.m., CCTV footage captures John and Robert leading James by the hand through the shopping center. Now, at 3:45 p.m. to 4 p.m., several witnesses see the two older boys walking with James, and some report that James appeared distressed or was crying. One witness sees the boys laughing as James stumbles and falls. At 4:15 p.m., the trio arrives at the Leeds Liverpool Canal. John and Robert attempt to push James into the water, but stop when James resists. They then leave the area and continue walking. From 4:30 to that right there is the Leeds Liverpool Canal, and I would imagine that that is the top of what some of your photos earlier showed, the search being through the canal. From 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. over the next hour, the boys walked James through Liverpool. They cover distances of over 2 miles. Several adults notice the trio and feel something is it's off, but no one intervenes. One woman offers to help James after noticing he's crying, but John and Robert tell her that James is their little brother. And at one point, they stop at a reservoir where they allegedly debate whether to drown James, but they ultimately continue walking. And I'm going to show you a few photos as we go through this. So they took a left onto Park Street once they kind of got out of the Strand Shopping Center area. And then they immediately took a right onto Litherland Road, which is fun to say. And then they took a left onto A5057 or 5057. And this is a major thoroughfare. This is not something that is small. They continued on straight through to Oxford Road, which is straight ahead there in that photo. And then they took a right onto Fernhill Road. And again, this is not like a quiet place. So once they hit Fernhill Road, they ended up down towards A5058, and they took a left. And they started heading down A5058, and they continued onto Breeze Hill. And right as soon as Breeze Hill turns into Queens Drive, they took an exit, and they ended up at A59. Now, I will say this. It's very possible that that highway was a lot smaller back in the 90s. I would imagine that's probably true. Yeah. But this is generally the path that they did take. So they exited 5058 to A59. They made a U-turn. They went too far. And for some reason they made a U-turn at Mandeville Street. And again, this is all shops. They turned right onto Church Road West, and then they continued down to City Road, and they exited City Road at the train tracks under the bridge. Now that bridge right there, those are the train tracks those are the train tracks underneath, and that's where they hopped down and went down the train tracks. And they traveled down the tracks. In this photo, it's actually on the other side of the fence. There's row after row after row of homes, and there's a fence that separate that area where the train tracks are, which is typical. That's usually what happens, but in this case. And then at 5:45 p.m., they arrived at the disused railway embankment in Walton, which right in that tree area and a little bit past, that's that area in terms of where they arrived. And 6 to 7 p.m., everything happens. And so in this entire 2 to 3 mile walk, hopefully you guys have a better idea, as close as I could get it, to what it looks like, because, well, Google Maps wasn't around at that point. Now, once they arrived there, obviously that was the site of James's murder. From 6 to 6:30 p.m., Robert and John subject James to horrific abuse. They throw stones and bricks at him. They beat him with a 22-pound iron bar and kick him. They pour blue modeling paint into James' eyes. James suffers over 42 injuries, including skull fractures. The boys remove some of James' clothing, and forensic evidence later suggests a possible sexual assault. From 6:30 p.m. to 7 p.m., believing James is dead, the boys lay his body across the railway tracks. They place stones and rubble over him in an attempt to disguise the body. And at 7 p.m., Robert and John leave the crime scene and walk home as though absolutely nothing happened. And now now Terry's going to talk a bit about the public outrage and media coverage. And as she does this, I just kind of want you to think about what would it have been like today? And maybe you can. I can't for the life of me imagine how insane this coverage would be, but I'm going to let Terry cover it from 1990s.
I'm going to tell you, the media coverage was insane. And I'm going to just tell you, I think I can be pretty positive when I say it would be even worse today. It would be even worse. The media went into overdrive because it went international like in days. I mean, the defense attorneys even tried to stop the trial due to the extensive media coverage saying, how could 2 10-year-olds get a fair trial? Because, guys, some of the headlines were like, How do you feel now, you little bastards? With pictures of Robert and John, these 10-year-olds. You know? But I'm going to also tell you, they bombarded James's parents. So James's mom, Denise, found out she was pregnant a month after James was killed. Here she is, newly pregnant, dealing with the loss of her son, because remember, she lost her daughter. They camped out on their doorstep. They couldn't go home. They had to go somewhere else. They couldn't go to the grocery store because they would yell comments at her. How does it feel that the monsters killed your baby? Who in their right mind does that shit? I mean, I get you want news. I get you want information, but you don't do that. The media also went after John and Robert's families and blamed them for their son's actions. Guys, the stories were saying how the mothers turned the boys into monsters, not the fathers. The fathers were not being blamed. Mind you, one of them walked out on his family. They weren't blaming the dads. They were blaming the moms, which shame on them, right? Now, the public and the media were also outraged because while the boys, after they were arrested, they didn't know what to do with two 10-year-olds. They did not have jail facilities for 10-year-olds. So they basically made them jail cells where their mother could stay with them overnight. And they weren't left alone. And the public went crazy about it. And I get it. I get it. But I also, on the other hand, they are still 10. I mean, I don't know. That's what I said. There's so many things I don't know. And the media was calling, and a lot of the public saying they wanted the boys to be put to death or minimum prison in life for life. That's what they were calling for before the trial, before they saw the evidence. You know, and I have to, just when reading everything, I can only imagine the police officers. They were thinking they were in the twilight zone, because what reality would you believe that two 10-year-old boys would kill a 2-year-old for no reason? No reason.
It
Doesn't
even sound like a Saw plot. like
It doesn't.
like it's not. It doesn't enter. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I did read an interesting case study that's called Bulger in the UK, the media, the public, and the government reaction. We will put a link in the notes if anyone wants to read it. It was very interesting. Back then, you didn't have media 24/7 like we do today. And that's when they didn't have parameters in place to not put two 10-year-olds' pictures on the front of a newspaper. And they referred to them as freaks, monsters, evil, and they called them animals. And the other thing, the media had no qualms about sharing the horrific details. The court kept as much of the horrific stuff out because the media, every little ounce they got, they were putting. They had no problems with it. And so that is one reason the courts stopped, letting some of the information get out. But it was a true shit show. And I cannot believe they did it to James's parents even. James's parents never went back to their house after the day he was found. They had to relocate.
Yeah. Yeah.
The media needs to do better.
Oh, for sure. And they've only gotten worse.
As I said, if it was to happen today, it was insane. It would be worse because we're 24/7 now.
Yeah. So in terms of Surprised everybody, the trial. Pre-trial arrangements. John and Robert were given false identities. They were housed separately in secure units. Two different children's homes they were kept at, and they pretended to be older and convicted of unrelated crimes to ensure anonymity. Authorities withheld counseling to avoid blaming each other for the most brutal aspects of the crime. In terms of court proceedings, May 14th, 1993, the boys pleaded not guilty at the Liverpool Crown Court. John hyperventilated in court, couldn't even handle the police lineup. Meanwhile, Robert sat there like a kid who got caught cheating on a math test and decided to I'll just wait it out and see what happens. The courtroom experience, to put it mildly, was theater of the absurd. But while that sounds like a joke or a jab, who could have possibly been court ready for a tragedy or a crime like this? So let me explain briefly what I mean by what made it absurd. They needed to have a special raised platform built so that the boys could see over the railings. It was two kids on booster seats in front of an entire courtroom, while a carpenter in the background bolted the chairs down in case someone threw one. Truly wild.
I mean, when I was researching, I had to stop because I kept visualizing two 10-year-olds sitting on booster seats in a courtroom with court proceedings that are meant for adults. And I'm going to just tell you, it caused me serious stress because court proceedings confuse me sometimes. I do not think two 10-year-olds should be in this type of setting. But on the other hand, I also think they need to be held accountable. So, but how much of this court stuff did they really understand? So they're, of course, sitting there looking bored because it's all over their head. If it confuses the heck out of me at my age.
Yeah. I didn't understand court proceedings until producer Tara or AP Amy or any of our other buds or mods that are here. Until they explained some things to me, I was just like, and still I'm, which is of no surprise to anybody. Now, the other thing that made this absurd was,
But two 10-year-olds, how are they supposed to understand?
No idea. I guess you're just going to play show and tell. It's just one long game of show and tell with serious repercussions. So the hours of the trial, this also made it absurd, but the hours of the trial were set to match the school day schedule, 10:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. because apparently they still needed recess. Within the trial, John's psychological profile was talked about, and you could basically call that Sonic the Hedgehog, but make it safe. John's mom described him as, quote, well-behaved but hyperactive, which is a translation for a good kid when not climbing the walls like a caffeinated squirrel, which I feel qualified to say because I am indeed a caffeinated squirrel who was bit by a squirrel. That's another story for another time. We mentioned this earlier, but in the context of the profile presented in court, I'm going to do it again. John's family situation included his older brother, who had a temper, younger sister had special needs, and his parents slipped up more times than Ross and Rachel on Friends. When asked about his dreams, John revealed his first wish, and these are dreams, not like his sleeping dreams, but what does he dream about for the future? But John revealed his first wish was to get out of prison. His second one was to turn the world into a chocolate factory. And his final wish was to live forever with unlimited cash. Honestly, relatable. I hear you. When he was asked if he could become anyone, who would he be? Well, he'd be Rocky Balboa or Sonic the Hedgehog. I mean, why dream small when you can dream of punching people or outrunning your problems? But I think the bottom line for this was that he was a child. His profile indicated he was a child. And let's be honest, who doesn't want to be Sonic? Just going to toss that out there. Now, in terms of Robert's psychological profile, he could be summed up to drama meets denial. Psychiatrist Eileen Vizard handed Robert dolls to reenact the murder. He enthusiastically demonstrated how John's doll beat the James doll while while he was a child, he seemed to be explaining how John was the violent one and he was the neutral party or the hero. And I would imagine the psychiatrist was probably like, sure, Jan. Now, when asked about James's sexual injuries, Robert suddenly went radio silent. So quiet.
And we'll talk about this more later, but this was a huge red flag and a miss for the courts. Huge red flags.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Now the Bulger family attended daily, except for Denise. James's mom was 7 months pregnant, and she was absolutely being hounded by the press, so she wasn't there daily.
Which is totally effed up that the press would do that. But I also want to say, why in the hell didn't the court find a way to bring her in where she wasn't seen? Because there are secret entries into courts and underground tunnels. Why did they not put that mom in that place? Why did they make her walk in front? Because she should have had the right to attend the trial. But I also believe it probably was for her mental health and to protect the child she was carrying.
Yes. Yes. Now, as Terry mentioned earlier, the press and society, both national and international, saw dollar signs. I mean, can we take a moment to understand that this entire nation collectively decided that this woman's grief should be treated like reality TV, which is like next week on Trauma Hour, she tries to grocery shop. It's like some incredible, horrible vision of Impractical Jokers. Tabloids dubbed all of the witnesses the Liverpool 38 and immediately shamed them from not stopping John and Robert while they were walking with James. Now, it's hard to say, and there's a lot there that really needs to be discussed and unpacked, but we'll have to talk about the bystander effect some other day. Now, in terms of the verdict, November 24th, 1993, the jury delivered their verdict. Robert sat there stone-faced, knitting gloves for his baby brother, like a man auditioning for Les Mis. John, ever the emotional wreck, sobbed loudly because crying, well, it worked great during police interrogation, so why not now? Again, 10. 10. There were 10. But no matter the tears, the judge wasn't going to pull any punches on the day. And the judge described the murder as, quote, an act of unparalleled evil and barbarity, which sounds like something out of a Game of Thrones episode. And honestly, not wrong, because it was. It absolutely was.
As someone who's never seen Games of Thrones, so don't understand it, I want to know what 10-year-old knows what the hell barbarity means. I mean, if you're going to punish a child, you need to speak in child language that they can understand, or it has zero impact. It's just like the sound of the teacher talking on Snoopy. Rah, 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 rah. Yeah, that one, because I doubt they've seen Games of Thrones either. So,
yep,
bad. That was a misstep, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, so their sentence, the boys basically would remain locked up, quote, until they matured. Which is, the translation is, we're going to keep those two in timeout until we can figure out what to do with them. Yeah.
Now, they wound up, and it went back and forth, I believe I read. They were given 8 years, so basically till they were 18. Now, I have thought about their sentences so much, and I, to this moment, can't say what an appropriate sentence would have been for two 10-year-olds for what they did. Their brains we're not even halfway developed yet. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say they didn't show some sociopathic tendencies or they didn't show some bad things, but I honestly don't. To this moment, I can't
Yeah.
decide what's appropriate.
Yeah, and what's wild is that someone in the gallery when they were sentenced said, "How do you feel now, you little bastards?" And that is the most British thing that could possibly be said at a trial. You almost expect someone else to chime in. Would you like some tea with that guilt? It's just, and then Wallace and Gromit come out the side, and it's just crazy. So in short, the trial had everything. It had murder, drama, public outrage, and booster seats. But there was an impact. Both families were forced to leave their homes, and they were given new names after the verdict due to the media publishing stories that demonized the boys and their families.
Okay.
So,
but
Terry's going to talk a little bit about the next step, and I'm not going to spoiler alert it.
Only Robert and John's families were giving new identities. James's family was not given new identities. Not saying they would have taken them, but they weren't even offered that. They could never go back to their home. So I do not understand why the killers' families got witness protection and the other family didn't. So in 2001, Robert and John were granted new identities and lifelong anonymity, basically like witness protection. Here's the thing, guys. When they released them, when they were 18, it was discovered they were taught how to lie and not admit to their crimes and how to not give away who they were. Literally, they were taught for witness protection how to be liars. And then the courts banned anyone from revealing their new identities, and that if you did, you could be charged for doing so. I mean, I get the 10-year-olds, but why does the whole family? And why didn't James's family? If you're going to give it to the killer's family, you offer it to the other family who has suffered, right? And if you thought the public and media outrage was bad during the trial, oh, it went insane on steroids afterwards. Now, according to the Daily Mail, the statement Thompson gave to the parole board in 2001 before he was released from prison and given a new identity. Oh my gosh. He admitted that he's ashamed of what he did, but he said it also made him a better person because he had a better life and a better education after spending 8 years in detention. He had a better life. They had gaming systems. They had designer clothes donated to them, unused. They had a better life than what they had growing up. That is not what detention is supposed to be. Now, James's father, Ralph, tried to force the courts to give out their names, but he lost that fight. Now, Robert's family had to once again be moved after he was paroled and his name got out due to attacks and threats. Now, I'm going to just tell you, we don't do this in the U.S. that I'm aware of.
Mm-mm.
You made your bed, you sleep in it, right? You get witness protection because you turned in somebody and something bad's going to happen. You don't get witness protection because you did the bad.
I will say this. As a juvenile, if there is a chance of rehabilitation, and that's the difference, because the U.S. prison system is not focused on rehabilitation.
Right.
There are many countries
I just
that are.
I understand
And
for the 2
so,
kids,
yeah,
but why the
right.
rest of their family? And now
That I don't know.
when they were released, they are put on basically what we call parole here. They still have to answer to the courts for the rest of their life. So the courts still own them. And I am glad they did get an education in there. You know, that we didn't just
Yeah.
lock them away and throw away the key, and they had the
Right.
chance. I just don't understand why their entire family, the government paid to move them and give them new identities, paid for it.
Yeah.
So I,
Well, let's let's talk about where they are now for as best as we can, shall we? Convicted in 93, Robert Thompson was released from custody in 2001. Good God, that picture. He's so tiny.
so
Um, he was released at the age of 18 after serving 8 years in a secure unit. He was granted anonymity for life under a court order and given a new identity to protect him from public scrutiny and possible vigilante attacks. Which I love the fact that the UK is planning for Batman. Since his release, his current whereabouts remain largely unknown to the general public, which is how it's supposed to be. So he was given that new identity, which, also included a backstory upon his release. Details after 2001 are kept strictly confidential under the terms of the order. Now, the legal protection is rare, and it's extremely controversial, but it was put in place to ensure his safety from potential retribution, which, considering the thoughts of the public for both the right and wrong suspects, as we heard earlier, while I'm not entirely sure I agree with it, it seems like it's the right decision based on logic. According to reports from officials involved in his rehabilitation, Thompson was considered to have been fully rehabilitated by the time of his release. He was reportedly remorseful for his role in the murder and had engaged in therapy and education while in detention. Now, while it might be hard for us to recognize in the States, it's, as I've said, not like we put a premium on rehabilitation in prisons. I mean, you remember the fella in Canada who ended up on the bus, had a breakdown, and killed or 8 people. If you remember this story, he has been rehabilitated and released, and he has not committed one more crime. He has actually been a contributing member to society because they focus on that. Rehabilitated, it just Robert Thompson's the exact same situation. He hasn't reoffended. He hasn't come into contact with the justice system again. The anonymity order protecting Thompson is so comprehensive that any attempt to reveal his identity, whereabouts, or new life is punishable by contempt of court, which can carry a prison sentence. So the media and the public are forbidden from publishing details that could expose his identity, such as his name, appearance, location, the cost of maintaining his anonymity, including legal protections, creating his new identity. It's all been a source of public criticism, with some arguing that it seems that his rights outweigh the rights of the James Bulger family and to know, where he is, because not even the Bulger family knows where he is. He's anonymous. Let's move on to John, shall we?
Now, I did find something that he has been with his partner. He is in a same-sex partnership with someone, and they have been together for many years. And
Good
he's
for him.
apparently, he was rehabilitated and is still giving back and trying to confidentially give back because he still believes he deserves punishment. But just share that.
Listen, if you give any more tips, we're going to be called to court in the parliament, and I'm perfectly fine with wearing a wig. So just tossing that out there.
No, not going to do it. But I mean, rehabilitation is a thing.
We all know this.
Rehabilitation is a thing. I mean, I could have got on the dark web and done some digging, but I decided nope. So now let's talk about John Venables. Oh, those babies. John was paroled on license, which is like I said, parole, in 2001. He was sent back to prison in February 2010 for having indecent photos of children on his computer, which was discovered when they were trying to move him for his own safety. He was released in August of 2013. He was sent back in 2017 for the same thing. Now, what I want to tell you about parole that I have a problem with, or what they call license, they're protecting his anonymity because of what he did when he was a kid. You screw up and you go back twice. Why do you still get that same consideration? You didn't do what we asked of you. Why should we do what we told you we were going to do? Okay. Now, he is currently still in prison. His parole was denied in December of 2023. They don't feel he'd be safe. In the parole board reports, he states and accepted that he had a long-term sexual interest in children, even after taking part in considerable amount of work in prison to address the area risk. I believe in rehabilitation. You can't change a petty. Once a petty, always a petty.
You can change it to a Manny. You just have to pay more.
Yeah. So I think they should revoke the ruling about not sharing his name because he is a registered sex offender now. 3 strikes, you're out in my book.
Yeah, it's like, do you just like delete the old name, put the new name on the sex register, the offenders registry? I don't know. Let's talk about Ralph Bulger. So Ralph, the father of James, has remained a vocal and determined figure in the years since his son's murder. As of recent reports, Ralph continues to live in the UK, where he has devoted his life to seeking justice for James and advocating for changes in the justice system. We should absolutely try to get him on. His marriage to James's mother, Denise, ended in the aftermath of the murder, which unfortunately is fairly common in the aftermath of a tragedy like this. The grief, as with others, created strain and emotional distance between them, and Ralph later did remarry and reportedly had a daughter from his second marriage. Oh, he has had several daughters from his
3
second
daughters.
marriage. Excuse me. Ooh, 3. Ralph has been a tireless advocate for sorry. The on-point fact-checking is amazing. Ralph has been technology. Ralph has been a tireless advocate for changes in the UK's legal system, particularly regarding how child killers or killers who are children are handled and punished. Now, this comes through work in his opposition to the anonymity orders, criticism of the justice system as a whole, and books media, where he published a book titled My James in 2013. Ralph is widely regarded as a figure of strength and resilience, though his views, particularly his calls for Venables and Thompson to be publicly identified, have sparked debate. And honestly, if you can spark a debate, that's a great thing. So,
Yes, like you said, he and Denise split up 18 months after James was killed, which even the birth of their son, Michael, couldn't prevent that. They dealt with their grief and tragedy in different ways. Now, Denise has been a fierce mom, and fighting for her son has continued. Now, like I mentioned, she had a child right after James died. She was pregnant during the trial. Now, they divorced. She did remarry. In fact, her and her husband, Stuart, just renewed their vows in 2023 while celebrating their 25-year anniversary. She also has written a book, and she is just amazing. She is very active in trying to keep John Venables behind bars after his latest conviction, but she doesn't believe his identity should be released. She said she does not want his murder on her hands. And I kind of can, she knows what it's like for someone to lose a family member to murder. So I think that's Now, something interesting, in 2016, a man was convicted of stalking her because he was infatuated and stuff with her because of what she went through.
Oh.
Yeah. So I said, why didn't they get new identities? But in 2017, she received the British Citizens Award for her service to the community for her work with the James Bulger Memorial Trust. And she's currently still a trustee for that trust. And today, she is still a mom to Michael, Thomas, and Leon. They all call her Supermom. They all said they never got to meet James, but they know about James, and their mom has never tried to shy away from letting them know, because she was a little bit of a helicopter mom. She tells in media that she had to learn how to balance that fear of something happening to your child and giving them the space they need to grow up when they were older. So, I mean, I am just so happy that, she survived.
Yeah, and here's the thing about this case. It's a true crime story that makes you want to simultaneously cry, yell into the void, and maybe flip a table if you're, emotionally capable of multitasking. It's like a dark and twisted episode
Mhm.
of Scooby-Doo, except the bad guys are literal children, and instead of unmasking them at the end, society just slaps on a lifetime of anonymity and hands them new names, fresh identities, and apparently all second chances in the world. Also, what are they going to yell when Scooby-Doo gets them? I could have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddlesome classmates. I don't know. Just it's this case has always haunted me. I had always said that I'd always said that I'd never cover it, just because of how hard this was. However, here we are, and I think that bringing this to the forefront for everybody who's watching, I think it's a good thing. I think that it does need to be talked about, and I think that ultimately things like bystander, the bystander effect, and kids this young, and kind of like those kind of things need to be studied and talked about. It's important, because if they're not, then it just goes into the ether.
Mhm. I mean, I'll tell you, this case has given me nightmares and has caused me to seriously think about the world we live in. I mean, it's been jarring to cover it because I think back to when my kids were young, and I was always told that when you put them in timeout, it should be a minute for each year of their age. Anything under that wasn't enough consequences. Anything over that was too much punishment, because they don't understand the concept of time at that time. So I think of that and I think about the punishment. I don't know what the right answer is on how much time they should have gotten, because if you look at one of them, rehabilitated, did well, the other one not so much. But if the courts would have looked into the sexual assault flags on James's body and forced John to talk about it, just maybe he could have been rehabilitated, because he was only 10. And they didn't. And that's why I said they failed him on that regard by not doing that. You should have pushed the kids to talk about it, because there was evidence it happened. So you should have done it. This case disturbs me, makes my heart hurt for the Bulger family, but also for Robert and John's families. It caused damage to everyone that lived in that town. Has anybody thought about the classmates and the schoolmates who went to school with John and Robert? What kind of impact has it had on them? We know it happened to the two boys who found James's body. They sought drugs and their lives were ruined. So I am very proud of James's mom and dad. They have been one of those families that is able to take tragedy and move on from it, because I don't know how you do it. I think Denise being pregnant with Michael probably helped a whole lot. And his name is Michael James. So they gave him his brother's name. So instead of becoming hateful, full of piss and vinegar, they're still choosing to wake up every day and make the best of the life that they have. And they choose to be happy. And I admire that. And I'm
Oh, yeah.
glad we covered this case, and we're never covering it again.
Correct. And I really appreciate you all hanging in there with us, and being there with us during this. I think, the community that we create here is one of a kind. And I can't wait to actually see that in person too, when we're live, and in person. So I just want to let you guys know that, well, this is the first of many, right? I don't know if we mentioned this, but True Crime and Wine Time is now going weekly. We are not bi-weekly anymore. We are now weekly. So guess what? Next week, our case is going to be Overboard and Gone, which is the deadly plot of Scott Roston. And you can find us talking about that next Thursday, 9 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. And, if there's a case that you're interested in, we want to hear about it. We want you guys to have involvement. So if you can send us case suggestions, that would be awesome. And by send us, I mean send our producer, Tara, case suggestions. And she's laughing quietly in a screen you cannot see. Tara at tcwtmedia.com. Please, 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 if you are interested, if you have case suggestions, send them in, because we would love nothing more than to cover something that you are interested in. That is interesting to us.
And with us being back every Thursday, we're going to be covering one case like we did tonight. So that's part of the new format. We're also going to try to keep it to an hour and a half. We didn't do that this week because we had a lot of catching up. It had been a while, and this case was dark. But we're going to cover one case in depth, and both of us are going to tag team it like we did tonight. So I'm very excited about that, because that'll be the same way we do our in-person live shows. So that makes me very happy. I want to remind everybody, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And if you want to become a channel member, we will be releasing special content just for you guys. We will be going live just for you. We will live stream our in-person live shows for you. And we're also going to have just some happy hours in Hangouts. Okay. Now, we also want you to go to our social media pages, comment about what you thought about this case, what you liked about it. Because, guys, I want to know your thoughts, because I want to hear both sides. There are so many debates. We could have debated this case for days. I just feel like we could have. So please. Also, Midday Missing returns on Monday, February 10th at 1 p.m. Eastern. So took a hiatus there as well, but Midday Missing is back on Monday. Very excited about that. Also, follow us on social media, please. We are trying to be better about getting out there and commenting on stuff. We are starting a new social media page that we will not be interacting on as much. It is for Midday Missing. It is going to be where we post all of the Midday Missing flyers from the show, but also all of the missing person flyers and stuff that were tagged in for the podcast for True Crime and Wine Time. We wanted a place that people could just go to just for missing persons information. So that will be going live on Monday as well. So please go join us on social media. And if you want to see Jasper, he is on Instagram too, especially since we know GT is going to be cuddling with him in a couple of months. So I want to say Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Please take care of yourself, your loved ones, and as always, stay safe, watch out for crime, and enjoy your one time.
And I would like to say thanks for tuning in, everybody. Please take care of yourself, your friends, your family, and your community. Do not let anyone dull that sparkle. And shine on, you crazy diamonds. We will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.